Welcome back to the All Things Sports Podcast, your number one sports podcast. I'm your co-host, Small Town EP, coming to you once again live from the chilly city of Atlanta. In a week where the University of Michigan is crowned amongst college football royalty, Draymond Green considers retirement, and the NFL playoff picture is set. ATS is back to give you the real in sports. As always, usual suspects are joining me. Big Kev, live from South Florida. How you doing, buddy?
Good, man. I'm good. What's going on? How you guys doing?
Can't complain. Trying to stay dry up here in this Atlanta rain. And then the man, the myth himself, Mr. Heat in 5. See you soon, June. Call him everything but late for dinner. Coming to you live from NY. How you doing, man? How's the? I heard it snowed up there recently, right? It was.
Yeah, last week and last Saturday, definitely had a little bit of snow. It wasn't nothing crazy. So under an inch. Listen, I'm waiting for a nice weekend of stay inside weather, blizzard-like temperatures, but it's not happening. We're just getting rain. It's 45 degrees and rainy outside. So one day, maybe in February we'll get some rain. Some.
Hopefully. Now, a lot of things to get into it, gentlemen. So let's just get straight into it. We'll start with college football. Michigan, number one in the land. June, you sent the tweet in the group chat about how the number one seed hasn't beaten the number two seed in a little minute. And the first thought that came to my mind was bet on Michigan then if that's the case, because this tweet is going public. Now, with that being said, like I just mentioned, Michigan wins 34-13 against the Washington Huskies. J.J. McCarthy had I would say, consistent, efficient game, 10 for 18, 140 yards, almost 8 yards a pass, no picks, no touchdowns for that matter. But he did have some, momentum, not change, but momentum kind of continuing plays. Michael Penix Jr., 27 for 51, 255 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. June, what really sealed the deal for Michigan in this game, and how did they manage to just pull away in the second half?
Well, I mean, Blake Corum, right? Michigan runs the ball better than a lot of teams in the country, if not the best. And I think they had the best player on the field yesterday. And as far as Blake Corum is, Washington, frankly, hasn't had to play a team that is so dominant up front all season. So, they had a habit of making things look easy all year. And with credit, they are one of the best teams in the country. And so they did that with the skill they have, good coaching, and obviously Michael Penix. But, that defense doesn't have to play a bunch of run-heavy teams in the Pac-12, all year. So University of Michigan, John Harbaugh and Blake Corum knew what they know what they had, and they knew what they were up against. And the way for Michigan to win the game was going to be to run the ball. Because like you said, McCarthy, he came out, he only threw the ball 18 times, and only having to throw the ball 18 times and only needing 10 completions to win a college football playoff substantially. I think it was no match for Washington yesterday. And unfortunately, that's how it comes to be at certain points, because Washington deserved to be there, right? And they earned their spot. They could have contended for it was 13-20, midway through the fourth quarter. It wasn't like this was a blowout all game. Just missed opportunities on their end that I think really, really hurt them. And when you're playing against a run game like that, you got to, capitalize on all of that. So for me, that's how I saw it.
No, I totally agree. If I'm not mistaken, Michigan had 303 rushing yards. And the stat that really stands out to me from there is that out of those 303 rushing yards, 231 rushing yards were before contact. Like, that Michigan offensive line was just dominating. And when you run for a $175 in the first quarter or something like that, just it was the I would say the biggest run since Drake in these last 10 years. If we had a comparison in a different part of the realm, in a different part of the world, I would say that would be kind of the most comparable run to compare to Drake at this point, because a $175 in the first quarter is wild. Kev, you got any thoughts on this national championship game?
Yeah, I mean, Donovan Edwards first of all, had 2 of the 3 longest runs in college football playoff championship game history for a touchdown, uh, and set the tone really for their run game with those first 2 possessions. But not only the run game, I thought their defense was what really, gave them that edge, and put them over the top because everybody knows Washington is a high-powered offense. That's what they do. They look to score points and put up as many points as they can on you. And the momentum, I think, really swung uh, going into halftime. I think the momentum swung Washington's way. They go in for a touchdown, make it a 7-point game, force a 3-and-out for Michigan, and then come out to start the second half. In the first play is Will Johnson makes a great play on the ball to bat it in the first place and then come down with it. So that to me was the biggest play of the game, was that interception there, because that goes from, you could be looking at Washington go down and score a touchdown to tie the game, to Michigan already having the ball in field goal range and then kicking a field goal and making it a 2-possession game. So yeah, shout out to Michigan, shout out to defense. I love Coach Harbaugh over there. Interested to see what his next move is, but yeah, I thought their defense played exceptionally well against a high-powered offense.
I do want to get into that before we move back into the NFL. Jim Harbaugh's future is kind of, in not in question, but everyone's wondering. He was obviously asked about it after the game, like, "Hey, are you coming back next year?" He obviously gave the PC, "Hey, I just want to enjoy this right now. Can you guys leave me alone with all that? I just want to enjoy this right now." Being on top of the world, pretty much. I mean, he could be more powerful than the governor of Michigan at this point in the state of Michigan, if you're asking me, right? Do you guys see him leaving to go back to the NFL at this point? Or do you think he sticks it out? He wants to run it back with a group of guys that, he obviously is going to lose a good number of guys this year, but do you think that he'll want to run it back again? Because I feel like if he does have any interest in going back to the NFL, coming back for another year at Michigan and then maybe not being as successful with all the accolades that he has at this point, do you guys see him staying? You guys see him possibly making the jump to the NFL again? June, I'll start with you first.
I mean, I definitely think it's Harbaugh's time now to go to the NFL. I don't see a problem with him staying, especially if he feels confident enough that Michigan can get back to where they are this year. It would be a big thing if Jim Harbaugh goes, stays at Michigan and finds himself back in the college football playoff, beats Ohio State again next year, and whether they win or lose in the playoff, I think that's a big deal because what he's doing at Michigan is to be respected as one of the best all-time coaches, there. And so, like you said, he's going to lose a bunch of players, and that's college football nowadays. Guys transfer in and out year, it feels like weekly throughout the season sometimes. But like I said, I just think it's his time. He spent his time in Michigan. He did what he had to do. He went there to win a national championship, and he's finally delivered on that throughout a year of ups and downs where he wasn't on the sideline for, some of the year due to the suspensions and the sign stealing scandal he's went through. I think him going to the league and kind of just cementing himself as one of the best coaches of all time in general can be, that should be something that he should work toward. And Vegas is like the name that sticks out a lot. And you asked me a few weeks ago if, Vegas should just give the job to Antonio Pierce. And I told you, they'd be doing themselves a disservice as a franchise if they didn't go out and do a proper coaching search and conduct interviews, throughout. I still do stand on that as far as, feeling like the Raiders do need to do their due diligence and find the best candidate possible for what it is they want to do going forward. However, Antonio Pierce definitely should have first considerations,
First
for
dibs.
that job. Like he really, really did prove himself as a coach, as a leader of men, and as somebody who represents the Raider way, especially, seeing what McDaniels left behind. I know that's neither here or there. The question's more on Harbaugh, but that influences my thought process on him coming or going. Los Angeles is also, a key destination. So I do think to answer your question in a long way, yes, he should come to the NFL.
Yeah, and shout out to Jay in the chat right now, saying that what you just kind of said, he's going to the Raiders for sure. Jay is saying, and shout out to John Days tuned in. Appreciate the love that you guys are showing in the chat right now.
Jay Days.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you were just saying, it's a crazy run that he's been on. This is a team that not only is it's his alma mater, he went there, he studied there, he got his education there. But this is a team that 3 years ago during the pandemic season, they won like 4 games, if I'm not mistaken. It was like 3-4 games. So the turnaround that he's been able to bring to this program, I mean, insurmountable. To see JJ McCarthy last year, pulling a Stephon Diggs, which I think the move is kind of corny, bro. Go to the locker room. You're not celebrating, but hey, that's neither here nor there. Standing there watching the other team celebrate, and then coming back for Soko, winning a national championship. I don't know if I feel like there's pros and cons to him leaving, to him staying. I think at the end of the day, it's really obviously, ultimately up to him. There's speculation about the agent that he's hired that has heavy ties in the NFL. I don't think that really kind of plays a deal with the agent that he's hired that has heavy ties in the NFL, whether he's going to stay or he's going to leave. I think the agent's just going to do his job regardless and make sure that he gets the biggest bag possible. He's obviously there's reports of him courting teams and, taking interviews last season and things like that. So I think it's just the process. Kev, what do you think? Is he staying or is he going before we move on to the NFL week?
I mean, as far as does it affect him if he stays and they have a down year next year? I don't think it affects him at all. Harbaugh's been a commodity in the NFL since he left to go to Michigan the first time. He's shown that he can get a team to the Super Bowl. This is not like a question of, is this guy going to is what he does in college going to translate to the pros? He's already proven that it can. As far as like what we're looking at though for next year, the Big Ten expands obviously to add Washington, who they just beat by 21 points in the national championship game, along with Oregon, UCLA, and USC. So there's Big Ten's obviously going to be a little bit tougher of a conference next year, but it's a 12-team playoff next year as well. So I don't know. I think he's got his pick of the litter right now. Whether he wants to say, "Hey, Michigan, give me an extension and pay me boatloads of money," or if he wants to go to the NFL and say, "Hey, I want to be the head coach and the GM, and I want final say. I want the Belichick type deal." I think he can do that, and I don't think coming back next year and not winning a national championship next year would affect that in the NFL.
A lot of head coach openings right now, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 with what I believe would be more to come at this point. But let's move on to the pigskin, as they say, the professional pigskin, not the college pigskin, right? And you know what? I want to start with those good old boys in Houston, because June cut me off last week if I was making a point, and he went and he was talking his shit, which, hey, rightfully so, but I would probably do the same thing, even though I probably wouldn't. But, hey, I would probably do the same thing. And June, very short of, guaranteed an Indianapolis win. And I think that Houston took that personal. CJ Stroud and the Houston Texans come out on top last game of the season, 23-19, to punch their ticket into the playoffs. June, what was the biggest deal breaker for you and the Colts in this game? I know it was a 4-point loss, but a loss is a loss and the win is a win. Talk to me, buddy. How you feeling? What did you see? What did you not see? What were you hoping to see outside of the win that would hopefully get you to the win?
I gotta let that one breathe. I gotta let that out. Hold on, bro. Because I honestly, man, Saturday night was up and down. I do remember cutting you off. I can't say we didn't come to play, right? We came to play. Did we come out the way that I expected us to come out? No, I didn't expect CJ Stroud to drop back 10 yards and throw a 75-yard dot. You know what I'm saying? And for them to just open the game up the way they did and steal the momentum in the first half. However, we were able to regroup. We were able to get past an early touchdown, a couple stops. We couldn't get anything rolling on offense at first. And then there was like, halftime came and that playoff, it was playoff atmosphere since kickoff, but I don't think the intensity on the field really kicked in until after the half. And we started to see the game just get real slow and tight. Pause. Like, each play was like a drag. It was like, can we get these 3 yards? Can we get these 4 yards? On both sides, because at one point, as good of a game CJ Stroud had, and hats off to him, I'm going to talk about him in detail more in a second, but just overview, as good of a game he had, it wasn't like he was just back there carving up the defense comfortably, at certain points for sure. But he had to make a lot of plays, and that's who he is. He's a playmaking quarterback. And so what it all came down to at the end is execution, in my opinion, because Coach of the Year candidate Shane Steichen drew up, to me, what was a great play call on 4th and 1. We've been in a situation on 4th and shorts during the regular season where we find ourselves going to a tight end, going to a back out of the backfield, doing some sort of RPO that doesn't necessarily include our starting running back. So although I understand the frustration is, Colts fans feel that Jonathan Taylor should be on the field for that play. Also, some people feel like Jonathan Taylor should have had the ball in his hands for that play, 4th and 1. I get it. And I'm not going to disagree with saying that Jonathan Taylor needed to be on the field or Jonathan Taylor should have got the ball. But I think two things can be true. I think Jonathan Taylor could have been on the field. However, Shane Steichen drew up a perfect play call that was poorly executed. And, we are the victim of having Gardner Minshew as our quarterback. And it's not an excuse. It's not anything to like cop out, because we would have won with him, and I would have been rooting for him in his playoff game. But it's just clear as day that, this guy is not a starting quarterback, and you got to be able to make that throw. And Goodson, it sucks because he was put in a position where he dropped that ball. And if we're being totally honest here, that's a catch you got to make. I don't care what's going on. I don't care how bad that ball is thrown. We saw how bad it was thrown. You saw how bad it was thrown. Make the catch, because he said it in his post game. It touched his hands, and it didn't touch his fingertips. It touched his hands. So although I understand that it's a bad play or a tough play to make, you got to own that. And so Gardner Minshew gets just as much as the blame, because it's a 3-yard swing pass and poor execution. So it sucks. Credit to the Texans, CJ Stroud, and who is this? Noah Brown going off for almost 200 yards on the Colts and making it look easy is what really frustrated me. Gus Bradley, our defensive coordinator, a lot of Colts fans want him fired. Shane Steichen has already come and said, he hasn't said he's going to retain him, but he's used words like, I like continuity. I respect what Gus Bradley has going on. And so, that makes you think we'll probably keep the same coaching staff with maybe some minor tweaks here and there, but it seems like Gus Bradley's coming back. To that point, I just want to address how I feel about Gus Bradley being our DC. I respect Gus Bradley. I think he's a very good DC. I think that he can be stubborn and not make certain adjustments throughout games that could help us. But at the same time, this is a team that's depleted at the cornerback position. We're injured at the safety position. And so when your front seven is getting the job done for the most part of the year, it's tough when you got guys like Dallas Baker, Tony Brown, Jalen Jones rookie, Julius Brents rookie. These are the guys you need to make plays against elite quarterbacks week in and week out. And so, trying to work with what he has and also being a little stubborn in his ways versus switching it up at points and getting actual production from the defense. I think Coach Steichen basically wants to see what he can be at a full strength, defense and what kind of coordinator he'll be for the Colts. But again, credit to the Texans, man. They came out and played a hell of a game, and they deserve to be, the AFC South champions. It's just funny to me before Jacksonville will come up. And I could be looking at y'all with a whole different perspective. Like, we are the AFC South champions, and it came down to, just a few plays down the stretch. But Jacksonville, boy, we'll get there. Kev, what are your thoughts on Saturday night's game?
Listen, I need to start keeping a board or a tally of how many things I call on the money, because I'm pretty sure I said that it would be a low scoring game that comes down to can Gardner Minshew do it, and I don't think he can. And we saw it happen. Like, he dropped back, easy pass. If you hit him, if you lead him, he probably catches that. But like you said, also at the same time, like, you got to catch that pass. Goodson, like, it hits him in the hands. He literally, that's one of those just hold X, secure catch. You know what I mean? Like, he didn't even need to turn up field. He had the first down if he catches the ball and just drops to the ground already. So, yeah, as bad of a throw that it was in that situation, because that's a very simple throw for a professional quarterback to make. You got it. The ball hits you in the hand. I always am a believer of, if the ball hits you in the hands, you got to catch the ball. But yeah, CJ Stroud came out, played a great game. Nico Collins, 195 yards. Yeah, it's kind of how I picture the game going. A kind of defensive back and forth. EJ Speed had a hell of a game for Indianapolis as well. So I think like June said, like, their front seven I think was phenomenal. Like, they bottled up Houston's run. Houston tried to get the run going all game. They didn't abandon it or anything. They just couldn't make anything work on the ground. And unfortunately gave up a couple too many big plays in the secondary.
Yeah, I think that June hit it on the head. I mean, Indianapolis outgained Houston. You had more first downs than them. You had more time of possession than them. It just comes down to execution, like Kev referenced. Can the man at the helm get it done when it matters the most? I would say big shout out to Josh Downs. I mean, those 3 receptions that he had, I think, played a big role. 48 yards. I mean, it's a first down every time I touch the ball. Georgia native, by the way, out of Swaney, Georgia. I got some ties to him now that I live up here. And I mean, just CJ Stroud continuing to do what he does. 20 for 26, 2 touchdowns. Every time he throws the ball, it's a first down from what it looks like. Offensive Rookie of the Year. I mean, the train continues at this point. I do want to stay in this conference and I want to stay in this conference by noting that the Steelers win this weekend that just passed, and they get in only because they got some help from Tennessee frauds, who we said would probably finish the season as frauds, and they finished the season on top, even though, as June likes to say, Vrabel's a fired fuck at this point. We'll get into that in a little bit. Steelers win, and they get in because the Jags just kind of free fall towards the end of the season. They'll play Buffalo, which, I think they can come out on top, but we'll talk about that on Thursday. Steelers beat the Ravens twice this year. Obviously, one of the times, which was just this weekend, they didn't have any of the stars on the field. So, I mean, take it with a grain of salt. Both games were low-scoring games, 17-10. That Mike Tomlin defense just seemed to shine in both instances. Do we have faith in the Steelers as a wild card team at this point in the season, moving forward, playing Buffalo? And even, maybe even deeper into the playoffs, Kev. What do you think about the Steelers team right now?
We don't have to go much deeper into the playoffs. They're not getting past Buffalo. No TJ Watt, and I think that's the biggest loss for them, is TJ not being on the field.
Yeah, I saw that was announced today.
Yeah, I would say if TJ Watt was out there, it's a different story. They might have a shot, but yeah, without the best pass rusher in the league, or the best edge rusher in the league, at least, I don't see it happening.
Yeah, I did see that announced earlier. I texted June yesterday. I said, hey, hot take. Steelers win in this first round. And then this morning I woke up and I saw that Watt is out. And I was like, fuck, that's definitely a ball breaker, as they say. Pause. June, How you feeling?
Listen, I do not have any faith in the Steelers. That
Mason
team right
Rudolph?
there.
No Mason Rudolph. No Christmas
You know
spirit.
what? If Mason Rudolph has 100 haters, I'm one of them. If Mason Rudolph has 0 haters, I must have passed away. All right. If haters are a thing in the afterlife, he has one, and I get that. And it's like there's no specific reason for me to hate Mason Rudolph, but for the fact that he just looks punchable and plays like Mason Rudolph is that Oregon State? Who
Oklahoma
where
State,
did
I believe.
Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State. Yeah. Oklahoma State. I knew it was the state and orange and black, but I yo, I just never really watched a game by Mason Rudolph where I was just left impressed by anything. And so them clinching because, Baltimore starters, hey, it is what it is. TJ Watt being the missing this week is a huge reason as far as why I have 0 faith in them. But even if they did have TJ Watt, man, who is the sack leader this year, right?
TJ
I
Watt.
actually believe so. Yeah, I can
think
verify
TJ
that.
Watt just got that. But even though they do, what Buffalo do over the last month and a half has been crazy. I think they're 5-0 in their last 5 games. Is that right? And they just
6, I believe. I believe they won
6-0.
6
6-0 or 5-0. I think they're 5-0. But they just went and secured the AFC East on the road. And understanding what's at stake, they've been able to take care of business. Now, the part of the game that makes things interesting for Pittsburgh is that they're playing the most turnover-ready quarterback, right? And Pittsburgh can get after that. Pittsburgh knows how to get after the quarterback and force turnovers, but I just think Buffalo all around is too good, and we'll see, But yeah, no TJ Watt, no way.
Yeah, Watt is the sack leader this season with 19 of those. 19 times he got to the quarterback and it led to negative yardage. So definitely, like I said, I saw that this morning and I was like, maybe I got to walk that take back. But I do think it'll be a good game due to, like you just said, the turnover-prone quarterback that Josh Allen is. Some people have him as a MVP caliber quarterback. I have him as if you're playing on the other team, you'll probably catch the ball type of quarterback. But that's neither here nor there. We'll stay with this kind of little setup right here. Vrabel out of Tennessee after winning the last game of the season against Jacksonville. He obviously comes from that Belichick tree, playing for the Patriots, being coached by Belichick. And now there's rumors that, maybe he in some form or some way, maybe he ends up as a positions coach in New England. Maybe stretch, maybe, I don't think it'll happen, but maybe Belichick is out of New England as a GM and as a coach, and Vrabel could get in there. Where do you see Vrabel ending up when the season starts next season, Kev?
I think he's the most interesting candidate because I could totally see a situation where the Patriots retain Belichick and tell Vrabel, come be our defensive coordinator for a season or two. And when Belichick decides to hang it up, you're the next guy in line. But does his, I think everybody has an ego, and he's obviously a highly regarded head coach now at this point in the league. I think he's shown that he can build a culture, as he did in Tennessee. So now it just comes down to is that something he'd be interested in doing? But I think I think I think the one scenario I could see Belichick returning is Variable being the DC, McDaniels being the OC, and then Bill being the head coach. But
ready to take back the East.
Exactly. But no, what I would see happening the most, especially if Belichick does go to the Chargers, like I think he will, is New England obviously being the landing spot for Vrabel. There's already reports that there's mutual interest between the Patriots and Vrabel. So, with Bill still as the head coach, it kind of, begs the question is what does that interest pertain to on New England's end? But I think it's going to be interesting. I think he's probably the most intriguing of all the candidates who are out there right now because of his ties to New England and his ability to lead a team and be a head coach. So I think it's going to be a fun next couple of weeks. Tennessee said that they decided not to trade him because I think they said it was going to be too hard or something and set them back. So
Yeah, what isn't hard for Tennessee?
yeah, I think they just didn't want to do any work and or just like get out of here. So yeah.
So it's hard for Tennessee getting to the playoffs.
So we'll see. I think that you look at Derrick Henry after the game and he's kind of bidding goodbye almost to the crowd. So it looks like Tennessee's just ready to blow that
To
whole
the crowd, to the kitchen staff, to the
Yeah,
fucking
and,
equipment manager,
yeah,
everybody.
looks like Tennessee's about to hit the reset button and go from there. But Vrabel to me is the most intriguing candidate who is currently in the NFL. Obviously, it's Harbaugh, but of the guys who are currently available and free agents, quote unquote, as a head coach, I think Vrabel is the most intriguing to me.
Let's keep it in the AFC. The Dolphins hand Buffalo a division and the second seed in the AFC. I mean, literally hand it to them. They lose 2 out of their last 3. Shout out to the group chat. I did win some money on that bet. Yay, yay. They lose 2 out of their last 3. If I'm not mistaken, 3 out of their last 5. I don't want to butcher this because they'll come for me in the chat. Yeah, 3 out of their last 5, 2 out of their last 3. Not as bad of a free fall as Philly that we'll get into in a second, but like I said, they handed Buffalo the division, like gift wrapped with a bow on top, with a little Mercedes parked out front with an Audi next door to it. All right, and they will go to KC this weekend. That's coming up. We'll talk about that in a second. Buffalo, as we were just referencing, and Josh Allen and company have, one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks. I want to stay in kind of the coaching conversation. The Sean McDermott out of the playoff coaches, out of the coaches that are in the NFL playoffs right now, the Sean McDermott have the hottest seat out of all of them, June.
I have to look. That's a funky question because, being as though they are in the playoffs to then, try to think that their seat is hot. But I see what you're saying. I would say no, just based on Sean McDermott going 6-0 or 5-0 to win the division and for back-to-back years, or I think this is their 3rd straight year, and securing a home playoff game. Like, I'm not firing that guy. So based on that, no. If I have to look at the other teams around the league in the playoffs, we're talking Pittsburgh, Miami. I'll kind of just join the conversation that I see on Dolphins Twitter. Let's talk about Mike McDaniel. And I don't think Mike McDaniel belongs on this this hot seat. But somebody's got to take blame for what's going on in Miami. Granted, back-to-back playoff, 10-plus win seasons. This is something that the Dolphins, weren't spoiled with the last 10 years. But we have to give credit and we have to acknowledge that this is a very good team. This is one of the best teams. However, there's something going on that
We seem to have lost June there for a second. Apologies to the viewers. A couple people in the chat were talking about it. I don't know, June, if you can hear me. We don't have you right now.
I hear you. You don't have me?
Okay, you're back. Keep going.
All right. Sorry about that, guys. So something has to get figured out in Miami because they're having all of this success, but they're unable to is what it comes down to. And it's not a talent thing. Put a lot of blame on Tua Tagovailoa for making poor decisions or not being able to complete games. But the Mike McDaniel abandoning the run conversation appears up too. And so Um, I just want to throw his name out there, and I think that if there was a hot seat for coaches that are in the playoff, I think Mike McDaniel is more suited for that seat than Sean McDermott. I think Sean McDermott has proven himself as a successful coach in this league. Clearly hasn't been able to get over the hump and get to the conference championship and Super Bowl. But in terms of regular season success and being able to, beat the best teams in your division or sweep them, they've been able to do that. That's just my answer. Kev?
Um, I think if you go one and done, it's hard to justify bringing him back, right? Because you've had how many years now where you've been almost there and just can't get over that hump. Like you just said about the Dolphins, about getting over the hump. Um, I don't think he's the hottest seat. I think if there's one coach who goes one and done and is looking at his job, it's Mike McCarthy in Dallas, because Jerry Jones is the most impatient owner in sports.
Me and you always think the same, bro. I fucking hate that shit. That was gonna be a segue of mine.
So I think McCarthy going up against his old team in Green Bay. I think if he drops that game, I don't think he's back next year.
And a red hot Jordan Love at that.
I think they're playing in Dallas though, right?
They're in Dallas, yeah. They're playing. Yeah, they're playing in Dallas. If I can just touch on what June was mentioning, pause. If I can just expand
Hey,
on.
yo, you know the meme of the kid on the bus and he's crying and he's looking out the window?
Yeah.
It's like, if I can just touch on pause.
The Dolphins scenario and Mike McDaniel. I don't think he's the issue. Like, that offense was the best offense in football for a reason, and it's because of Mike McDaniel. There's a guy that I don't know, I've only been saying it for a while, just mark it down as something else I was right about. But when he played winning teams this year, he had 7 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. And that's just not gonna get it done when you're
TT, do you love me?
when it's not gonna get it done when you're playing the better teams in the league. And as good as he's been in the Mike McDaniel offense, I think it's the most hilarious thing to see on Twitter when 3 weeks ago Dolphins fans were saying this was the league MVP, to now, is he the guy? Because I mean, we saw it in back-to-back weeks. He played the top 2 seeds in the AFC, and he shit the bed. I mean, for lack of a better term, he shit the bed. And you can't have a quarterback back there who shits the bed. We just saw CJ Stroud go into what he said was the loudest football environment that he's been in his career and get a win. And that's a rookie. So that's what you're
All
looking
right, not
for in
too
those.
much.
That's what you look for in those big games from your quarterback. And to this point, Tua hasn't provided that for the Dolphins. Now, he could definitely turn that narrative around on Saturday night if he goes into Kansas City in what's supposed to be treacherous conditions as far as the weather. If he can go in there and pull out a win and get them back on track, then we're talking about a different story. As far as like abandoning the run, you don't have the league leader in touchdowns in the backfield the last 2 weeks, so not having Mostert obviously hurts. I think you can only go to Achane so often because of the type of back he is. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see on Saturday, because I think we have Kansas City, who's obviously, we've talked about it all season, hasn't played the best football, and we have the Dolphins, who played maybe the best football up until 3-4 weeks ago. So it'll be an interesting game. I think it's going to be a good game, but we'll get more into the specifics on Thursday.
Yeah, shout out to Jay in the chat referencing Vrabel and maybe Vrabel ending up in Atlanta or Carolina. I do like the Atlanta look. I don't like the Carolina look. I don't think that Vrabel's the type of personality or type of person that would put up with an owner like David Tepper, being all up in the Kool-Aid, as they say, or all up in your video, as Suge Knight once said at the award show. You know what I mean? Wanting to call plays when you're an owner and things like that. So I don't see Vrabel putting up with a personality like David Tepper, but I could see him in LA. Wow, in Atlanta, making use of Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson and the talent that's down here right now. So I could see Vrabel in Atlanta. I don't know how what kind of incentives they would give him to come to Georgia and to coach out of the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but I think Atlanta would be a much more efficient look than Carolina, in my opinion, anyway.
Shout out to Jay for the comment, and we're gonna get to these other ones too. AJ said, shout out to AJ. AJ said Dolphins 24, Chiefs 17. Obviously a Dolphins fan there, so.
Yeah, June's mic keeps cutting out when he talks about the Dolphins. I don't know if this is some type of type of voodoo that they put on your mic, bro. Pause. That's crazy. Yeah, we apologize to the listeners right now. We're having some technical difficulties with June's sound right now.
My shit cutting out like that for real?
Nah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Damn. What did y'all hear?
When you went to the chat, nothing.
Look, all right. So this is what happens when you go live. You can run it back. Can't hear June. Can't hear June. Yo, Kev, take over for a second, bro.
No, we can hear you now.
All right.
Yeah, you're good. You're loud and clear, bro.
So as far as Atlanta, I want to know if they're going to think, okay, you know what? We're a quarterback, not away, but we need a quarterback. That's one of the biggest things here. We have talent on the outside with Drake London. We've got Kyle Pitts, and we've got Bijan Robinson. Like, we need an offensive mastermind to come in here and turn this bitch up. That's my thoughts on, if I was Atlanta's front office, Arthur Blank, who I'd be looking for. Maybe a Ben Johnson, maybe a Joe Brady, somebody that, has that offensive mind. Now,
Dorsey.
When we're talking about Carolina, I'm just interested to see what you guys think. And if anybody in the chat has any type of idea, who's going to be the guy to take that job? Because it's going to be somebody who really has just been dying to get this head coaching position, or somebody who truly believes in what they stand for, can come in and change this all up, because the situation is scary in Carolina for years right now. It's not just a this year, next year problem. It's like they've got at least another year, 2, 3 of future issues that they can run into. So it's not going to look pretty for a few years. Who's going to be the guy to come in and take the job?
And even at that, it's not going to look pretty. And once again, I got to reference David Tepper. You're dealing with an owner that, is just, I would say, fire happy. Like, if you don't please me, pause in the first, 6, 7, 8 games. If I don't see what I want to see in the first 6, 7, 8 games, you're not going to make it through to week, 17, 18. So that just being on eggshells the entire season is just that just adds to the ugliness that is, taking that job in Carolina. Again,
I agree. Kev, you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys in the league. I heard this once, and it's always rung true for me since then, is there's 32 head coaching positions in the league, and guys who are coordinators in the league for a long time aren't going to pass up a job because it's in Carolina or because, it's Atlanta.
Yeah.
But you look at a guy like Antonio Pierce. I mean, if Vegas doesn't choose to keep him, he's got a rookie quarterback or going into his second year quarterback in Bryce Young. But maybe he's someone who feels like, all right, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to bring my culture. I'm going to change the culture here in Carolina and really get the ball rolling here. A name I like, though, with all the offensive weapons and just like you said, needing a quarterback in Atlanta is a guy whose head coach was just fired. And who knows if he's going to stay on staff. But I love Eric Bieniemy to get a head coaching job finally and utilize those weapons and see what he can do with them.
Atlanta gonna get their black head coach. It's beautiful. Shout out to you for agreeing with Ant. Ant is in the chat. He said could be AP if the Raiders do him wrong, and I agree. I think he can just make it, the Carolina Raiders, and kind of take that swag over there. Um, Shout out to AJ, shout out to John Days in the chat. Real quick, guys, they want to hear about the Giants and Wink Martindale. Obviously he stepped down, or there was some sort of parting ways today as DC for the Giants. And um, I know that the numbers weren't the best as far as the New York Giants defense. They were on the field for a lot of this season, I believe, and their offense didn't do much to help them out. So, that's what you're going to see out of a defense that has to play a lot of the game every game and find ways to score because the offense can't. Um, so I'm not going to put those numbers based on this year on Wink Martindale. I think Wink Martindale is a guy who can win over a locker room, who has all the guys' respect, and who knows what he's doing. Now, does that mean he's the guy for the job? Does that mean he's still one of the better defensive coordinators in the league? No. But he can prove that in the near future. And I think that that'll ultimately be better for him as far as situationally, because in New York they've got a lot to figure out, and it's crazy because they have a lot of talent over there on offense and on defense. And on defense they got some guys. They got Dexter Lawrence. They've signed Bobby Okereke. Adoree Jackson's not too bad, and they also have Xavier McKinney. So and Isaiah Simmons. There's a lot of talent to work with, but offensively and now with Coach Dable kind of going through that sophomore slump, it's just a lot of uncertainty. So, yeah, I would like to see Wink Martindale, DCing another team and having success.
Kev.
Yeah, I mean, the Giants are a mess at this point. I mean, you just paid Daniel Jones all that money and got what you got from him this year. So yeah, it's a tough situation there, especially for Dayball, to see what he plans on doing on offense. He's obviously the offensive guy in that locker room. So uh interested to see what his plan is going forward with Daniel Jones, or if he plans on moving forward with Daniel Jones, or what they plan on doing with him this offseason. I would imagine you have to move forward with Daniel Jones after the contract you gave him, at least for one more year, and see if it works. But coaching staffs don't really have all that much time to make things work like that. So um, that offense looked 10, 50, 100 times better with Tyrod Taylor. I'll tell you that. When Tyrod Taylor was back there. So maybe you just need a competent quarterback back there. And maybe Daniel Jones got the money and decided, I got what I need.
Ran off on the plug.
So I'm interested to see where they go on offense. And obviously, like you said, the talent is there on both sides of the ball. I thought they would win the East this year. That's one of the things I was actually wrong about. So it's a rare thing for me to be that wrong about things. So
Hey, since we're talking about who's wrong and right about certain things, I believe now that it's week 18 and I can finally just close chapter on this NFL season, I told you guys that the Ravens were going to have a top 3 defense and a top 5 offense. And they had enough offense, rush offense, and they had the 6th best total offense. They finished with the number 1 total defense. So shout out to them boys, because I just thought with the way the roster was currently constructed, the draft picks, what they did in the offseason, bringing Odell Beckham, getting a little extra help there. After everything that we remember how this summer went, right? Lamar Jackson was set to be a free agent and nobody wanted him. And he's going to be the MVP in February. It's pretty crazy. I have a photo on my phone I was looking at the other day, and it's the Colts jersey photoshopped onto Lamar Jackson. And it's like, of course I love Anthony Richardson, but man, I would love for Lamar Jackson to be the quarterback for my team. So shout out to Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, what they've been able to do, finishing as the best team in the league. In my opinion, I think they are the team to beat going into the playoffs. If you want to argue San Francisco, that's fair, but the Ravens understood the assignment in 2023 so far. Let's see if the playoffs, they find that success as well. EP, keep us going.
Yeah, since we're talking about wrong or right, early on in the year, we had an episode we wanted to give out some early hot takes. And I said, hey, early hot take. This is like week 1 or week 2. I said, hey, the Bengals aren't going to make the playoffs. And would you look at that? Would you look at that? The Bengals aren't in the playoffs. Fuck Cincinnati. Twitter can come for me all they want.
However it works out, it's not going to work out for them. That's what you're saying?
And you know what? I said on Twitter, and I'm standing on it on the pod. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs next year either. But I digress. Speaking of the Giants, they did finish the season with a win, like Kev was just referencing, Tyrod Taylor and company. With hey, Tommy DeVito did go 2 for 2 in that game. You know, I don't want to overlook his 2 attempts and 2 completions. The name of the game is ratios, and that's 100%. I give it to him. But neither here nor there. I digress. They did finish the season on the win, 27-10 against the Philadelphia Eagles, who they just lost to a couple weeks prior. The Eagles, man, 1-5 in their last 6 games, free falling their way into the playoffs. Kev, do we have faith that the Eagles can make another Super Bowl run, or have they peaked at this point?
I don't think they peaked. I mean, they obviously they're a little banged up, but I think do you think like at halftime they're like, all right, the game's over. Let's see what Mariota's got and give David Carr his wish. uh, but you talk about ratios. The Giants actually were the number 1 team in turnover to takeaway difference. So didn't translate to wins for whatever reason. But they did a good job all year of at least forcing turnovers, and they did it again in Philly. And Philly's kind of playing their worst football at the worst time. Although they are the last team to beat Buffalo. Um, it's been a weird season for them. They like the talent is all there from last year. Nothing's really changed much. If anything, I think they've gotten better as far as their roster is concerned. You add defensive rookie of the year Jalen Carter. You add DeAndre Swift in the backfield. So I think looking at their roster from last year to this year, I think their roster is improved, but something just isn't working at the moment there. And whether it's Jalen Hurts and them trying to keep him in the pocket more, or them just not running the ball as much as we're used to seeing them run the ball, there's some sort of disconnect going on because it's a talented team that probably should have won the NFC East if they didn't, go on this collapse at the end of the year.
Fair. June, have the Eagles peaked? Do we see them in another Super Bowl run?
Kev's point, kind of worst time of the year. I don't know that it's the worst time of the year. This might be the low key the best time of the year, because they did, go 1-5 and they let the division slip out of their hands. Which I always say this until it changes. The NFC East is a revolving door of winnings, of champions, and there's no one winner in that division year in and year out. So we saw this coming. However, 1-5 is most certainly alarming. They didn't have to win last week. This past week. They're playing Tampa Bay on the road in the first round in the wild card. Tampa Bay, for what it's worth, has been on a Baker Mayfield's December looks amazing, and I think that team has a chance to kind of show that, hey, Brady left and we're still winning playoff games, right? When Brady was here, first of all, this is a revenge game for the Eagles if they needed any other motivation, because when Brady was in Tampa and the Eagles were just kind of like 1 year away, Brady did that to Philly in the first round. I remember that. Now, here's the get back. And the whole thing about it is we just got to win tomorrow, or we just got to win this week. We just got to win this week. The Eagles, guess what? 1-5, 10-1 means nothing. Means nothing. Because, not to say it means nothing, wholeheartedly, they got to this point and it got them a wild card spot. Great. But from now on, it's 0-0. And to think a team with Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift, Jalen Carter, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, these guys who've been in the playoffs multiple times, who've played in a Super Bowl, aren't going to be ready versus a team like Tampa Bay. For that matter, any team in the playoffs. I think Philly will be ready. And if they had to lose every game for the rest of the season that they had to lose in the month of December, great. They have a chance right now to prove that we can gather around each other. The locker room is not lost. This team still has a lot of talent, and we still know how to win games. Coach Sirianni has to step up, and I think it's going to be a big, big game in his career, because if they do lose this game, we're going to look at coach first. Everybody's going to look at coach first.
1000%.
Because there was rumors that the locker room was lost. It's upside down, this, that, and the third. And I don't believe those to be true. And I'm not saying just if they lose this game, that will become true. However, again, blame has to be placed somewhere. And if calls are what's not being, like play calls are what's being disputed and not agreed with, that's on Sirianni. I do want to point out, however, in the last 9 to 10 games, I mean, let's look at A.J. Brown's numbers since November 5th against Dallas. All right. So he got 7 receptions for 66 yards and a touchdown, 1 for 8, 5 for 37 and a touchdown. San Francisco, 8 for 114. Dallas, 9 for 94. Seattle, 5 for 56. New York Giants, 6 for 80. Cardinals, 4 for 53. And yesterday, before he got hurt, or Sunday before he got hurt, 1 reception for 9 yards. I mean, the lack of production just speaks for itself. This is a guy who was averaging over 105 yards a game, 110 yards a game for a good 6 to 7 weeks, and just totally, got figured out. I want to say, because I don't think it was a thing of Jalen Hurts not wanting to give him opportunity. I don't think it was a thing of play calls not being drawn up his way. I think it was teams figured out how to stop A.J. Brown, and it worked. A.J. Brown, I think the Eagles go as far as A.J. Brown can take them offensively. And if he's not going to be healthy, then that's going to be very, very crucial for the playoffs. But I do think they'll take care of Tampa Bay nonetheless.
Worth noting is that these teams did meet in week 3 in Tampa Bay. Eagles obviously won because they, were on a winning streak earlier on in the season. 25-11, they did outgain Tampa Bay to a tune of 472 to 174. Each team had 2 turnovers. Philly had 27 first downs to Tampa Bay's 12 first downs. Obviously, both these teams have done 180s since then. I would say Tampa Bay's done a 180 and Philly's done a 180. So it's going to be a good first round. We'll talk more about that on Thursday's episode. We'll stay in the NFC South. Last game that we'll talk about this week, and that just happened, the Saints game. And we all know what we're going to talk about, so let's talk about it. Victory formation was called by Dennis Allen. And in true Jameis Winston form, he says, fuck that shit. We're giving Jamal Williams his first touchdown of the season, his only touchdown of the season. 1 yard out on the 1 yard line. Are you standing behind Jameis on this, Kev, or are you on the Shannon Sharp side that said, cut Jameis immediately?
Listen, I mean, if the offense was for it, I mean, what are you gonna do? The game didn't matter. You're both out of the playoffs. Let Jamal Williams get his touchdown. He led the league last year in touchdowns and had to wait until the final second of week 18 to get his first one. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. Like, they got I think Jameis actually said this. He was like, we got an interception down to the 1. So if they scored on the interception, would it still have been disrespectful? And it's like, yeah, bro. Like, I mean, the only thing I would say is they lined up a victory formation and then ran a play. Like, that was the only thing that I think was the like negative side of it. Like if you're gonna make the other team think you're just taking a knee and then you run the ball, that's a little, over the top. But um it is what it is. I thought the best thing to come out of that game was the I don't know if it was Dennis Allen who was wearing black Air Forces, but somebody on the Saints sideline was wearing black Air Forces, which went along with the Falcons schedule release where they put black Air Forces for the two Saints games, saying that basically they were going to run in and
Oh man.
take their shit. So, and then the Saints shout out to their social media for posting the picture of just whoever it was wearing the black Air Forces. That was my biggest takeaway from that game was the black Air Forces.
Black Air
I
Forces.
I definitely share the sentiment of, hey, if we scored on the pick, what would have been the difference, right? I did think that the coach meetup was very amusing, and then you have Atlanta's DC just casually walking by and saying "bitch ass motherfucker." That was hilarious because the microphone caught that too. June, was it disrespectful or is it is what it is type of situation?
Well, it is disrespectful. It is. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not. I agree with it? Yeah, I agree with the players getting together, like Kev said, to kind of get one for their guy and celebrate him it's kind of bigger than the moment is bigger than like that specific moment in the game. Um, is it disrespectful? 100%. You got to stand on business when you do something like that. Like we are disrespecting our own head coach because he told us to do something and we're not doing it. That's first. Second, we're disrespecting the team lined up across from us. Now, whether that matters to me or not, it doesn't. I'm not the type of person that when I see a team do a fast break layup, it's like, oh, classless, just get them out of the game. Do I agree with it? Like, no. If they're, if it's victory formation, if it's garbage time, and just run the clock out, take the shot clock. But if you do it, I'm not going to be the one to pick a fight with you. I'm not going to go and, say cut him. Also, I've never played in the NFL like Shannon Sharp. So maybe he feels a certain way because of, him being a part of that brotherhood. However, again, is it unsportsmanlike? Yes. Is it disrespectful? Yes. Jimmy Graham came out in a tweet, Kev. We were talking about it, where he's like, listen, Shannon Sharp needs to lay off him. Jameis is my guy. He's one of the best teammates I ever had. I love him. We agreed on it as a team. And also, fuck the Atlanta Falcons. Like, that's the NFC South. And this is at the same time what sports should be about. Rivalry, banter, you know what I'm saying? A little bit of chippiness. Like, nobody went and hit somebody low. Nobody went and tried to bounty gate anybody. We just fooled y'all. That's it. And like Jameis Winston said, it was 41. What happened about them? What about them other 41 points?
Yo, he's a comedian, bro.
Y'all mad about these six? And by the way, Jameis Winston is 100% by far the funniest person in the NFL. And it might be NFL history, but right now as it stands, he's the funniest person. I wanted to go to the chat real quick because we got some comments.
Absolutely.
They were talking about the Giants when we were Jay and Lou. Jay said outside of Darren Waller, he's even questionable. And Saquon, the whole offense can go. And then Lou said that Waller was my biggest disappointment. Hyatt also has a lot of potential. I do think, listen, a good tight end needs a good quarterback to get him the ball. I'll say that as far as Darren Waller. He'll be fine. Jalen Hyatt, a deep threat receiver, needs a good it comes down to quarterback play a lot of times. So Lou said, I effing hate the Eagles, but playoffs are all that matter at this point. They did lose to the Cardinals and the Giants, but we'll leave that alone. Shout out to Arav, shout out to Crystal, shout out to Vanessa, Eagles fans. Those are the Eagles fans I know. And they had to take that L on Sunday. You know what I'm saying? Right here. But I believe this is Rodney. Shout out to Rodney in the chat. He said unsportsmanlike completely. And then he said, so the Dolphins should have scored one more time on the Broncos to make history. Yes. Let's talk about it. I do wholeheartedly believe the Dolphins should have taken advantage of the situation and made NFL history. If you ever put me in a position to be recognized as the best to do something or breaking
I'ma
someone's
do
record,
it.
and I
Yeah.
am in arm's distance in doing it, I'm taking my shot.
1,000%.
In that Dolphins game, it was also 56-14 at one point, or 56-13, and Mike White threw a 60+ yard touchdown pass to Robbie Anderson. So, I mean, I don't understand what this has been going on all year. And then Dolphins fans were upset because Tyler Huntley threw a touchdown in the fourth quarter of that game. It's like, bro, you guys were literally doing this to Denver.
Yo, big
Yeah,
shout out to Robbie Anderson, Broward County boy, South
facts.
Plant,
I
South Plant
just, my
alumni.
thing is like, okay, I can understand something being unsportsmanlike, but I feel like unsportsmanlike in certain contexts is a part of the game. I think unsportsmanlike and a little bit of disrespect and a little bit of chippiness and a little bit of I don't fuck with you, we don't want y'all to fuck with us. That's part of sports, and you get the best out of players with that when those type of things are involved. When you look at the Super Bowl, that's the biggest game of the NFL season, and as soon as the game starts, the energy is just up here, and it's not because these teams hate each other; it's because what they're playing for. But when you take a rivalry game like Red Sox Yankees or FSU, or in the NFL, we can go with maybe KC or Dolphins Jets, something like that. Like
Or Duke,
there's
Carolina.
always some sort of pregame, you know what I'm saying? Shit talk on the field where it's just a different vibe. We don't rock with y'all like that. And so yeah, I'm never gonna be the guy. Maybe I'll be, maybe I'll grow up one day and turn into the old guy who cries about it. But as it stands right now, I'm all for teams running up the score. I'm all for, like, we are professionals. Y'all get paid millions of dollars, and y'all talk about integrity. When we talk about integrity to me, non-cheating, I think cheating, like sign stealing, like banging on a trash can to win a World Series. God damn it, that's ruining the game.
Fucking
That's
trash
taking away.
throws.
That's showing lack of integrity. But whooping your ass for 60 minutes while the clock's still running, well, that's all within the rules, my bro. So
Oh my God. So that's hey, what are you gonna do? Like you said, and like Jameis said, what happened to the other 41 points that we just put up on you? Why are these 7 points, sticking in your ribs so much? Pause. That's crazy. Let's take it over to the NBA before we get out of here. About to hit the hour 10 mark. Appreciate everyone that's tapped into the live right now. If you're tuned in live, thank you so much. If you're tuned into the chat, we appreciate you. If you're listening on all your streaming platforms and your podcast streaming platforms, whether it's Spotify podcast, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, don't care. We love you. We appreciate you. You could have been anywhere in the world during this, hour, or listening to anything in the world during this hour, but you're here with us, and we appreciate you for that. Ja Morant came back from his NBA gun charge. That's how I'm gonna say it. NBA gun charge, and the Grizzlies were 4-0. The Grizzlies were 4-0 since his return. He played 9 games. They ended up 6-3, and now he's out for the season. How big of a loss is this for Memphis? Can they still make the postseason without Ja Morant, June?
shit, how big of a loss? Didn't they go on like a 14-game losing streak without him? They gonna have to start singing that song by Kelly Clarkson, Since You've Been Gone. They're gonna start singing that shit when they get on their new 3-4 game losing streak, because what he does for that team is just it goes unspoken. I mean, there's no guy who can replace Ja Morant in Memphis. Even if you bring in another all-star caliber player, it's just wow. I like to see what Kev says. To me, even if you bring in another all-star caliber player, Ja Morant has something different about him. He has something different that he does to the crowd. He has something different in his aura. He has something different as far as his explosiveness and athleticism. And also he plays with his heart. So you got to give it up. I mean, season's over in Memphis. And I don't expect us to talk much about the Grizzlies on the podcast for much more of this season. Kev, I do want to challenge you and ask you what that face was you were making when I was alluding to not being able to replace him.
So So okay, I think Memphis did a terrible job this offseason, letting Tyus Jones go,
Yeah.
because you look at Memphis before this season, and with Tyus Jones as their starting point guard, whenever Ja was out, they were 37-24 playoff team, even without Ja.
Yep.
Um, Obviously, I think that Dylan Brooks, for letting Dylan Brooks go, bringing Marcus Smart in, kind of is a wash. I feel like they're both kind of give you the same sort of impact on the defensive end, and then you hope they can knock down their open shots. But Tyus Jones, to me, is one of the most underrated point guards in the league. He's gone 2 years in a row breaking his assist to turnover ratio record for a season. And when I say it all the time, if you're not turning the ball over as my point guard, you can have the ball every time down the floor because you're not giving the other team opportunities. We see with Tyrese Halliburton now in Indiana. Um, so that's where I think this season was lost in the first place. So Ja's out the first 25 games, and Tyus Jones is no longer here, and they didn't really do anything to address that. And so I think that's been their biggest issue all year, is finding some. Marcus Smart was the point guard in Boston because they had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and that's why that worked, because Marcus Smart did not need to be the point guard. You could have Jaylen Brown bring the ball up, you could have Jason Tatum bring the ball up. Um, but he's not a guy that is going to come in and take the place of Ja Morant. So I think that's where they messed up before the season even got started. And no, but to answer the question, no, there's no shot that they're making the playoffs.
Only one man can change the Grizzlies, and his name is Tyus Jones, and he went to Duke. Hey man, something about those Duke players that just do something for an
Come
NBA
on,
franchise.
man. Exactly.
But,
Speaking of a Duke player, thank you, Coach K. I've always wanted. Yeah, thank you, Coach K, for everything you did.
we miss you.
Yeah, we miss you. Although John Shire doing a hell of a job. I don't remember the exact stat, but I am gonna butcher it because it's worth noting. If I'm not mistaken, through his first season and a half, he has the highest winning percentage as a Duke coach in his first season and a half so far, with the games that have been played this season and last season. So definitely a shout out to John Shire. But we'll take it back to the pros, and we'll take it over to the West Coast. Draymond Green set to return soon.
Almost set to retire.
He's set to knock a naysayer out. That's what he's set to do.
Oh my God. Yeah, Draymond Green set to return soon. Obviously, we're all seeing, he had thoughts of retiring. Him and Steve Kerr cried together, apparently. For whatever that's worth. But he is set to return. My question for you, June, is what kind of expectations do you have for this Warriors team once Draymond does return?
Yeah, I just think they're going to be more physical as a team. I just want to backtrack before we even talk about on-court, Golden State going forward, and what I expect from them. Draymond Green told us a few things. He told us that he sat down with Steve Kerr and they cried it out. He said that he spoke with Adam Silver and he told him he was going to retire, and Adam Silver talked him out of it. And then he goes at Stephen A. Smith he misquotes Stephen A. Smith and then goes at him and says he disagrees with him because Stephen A. Smith said that Steph Curry is not really a vocal leader, which we don't know him to be one. Draymond Green took that and said Steve Kerr called Steph Curry a bad leader. And I know there's this whole new media thing with Draymond Green or whatever the case is. And I'm not here to poke fun at or anything, but Draymond Green should just focus on basketball right now, in my opinion. And I'm not here to shut up and dribble him. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be on a podcast. I actually am entertained with some of the videos that come out of that. I like watching him on the floor. However, things have just gotten so out of hand that he had to go to rehab. He had to go to counseling. He had to go take time away from the game to hopefully avoid further conflict. And so now that he's back, I don't think he needs to be focusing on anything but the main thing, which is trying to win another championship in Golden State. Whether you guys see it as possible or not, I think that's their main goal. And we saw when he left, they started to find some success, and they haven't been playing the most consistent good basketball. However, if he understands that he just needs to fall in line and do what it do, they will be better, because they are, in my opinion, a better team with Draymond Green. But he has to find that control. And I'm gonna be the guy. Like, the man is 30 something years old. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not here like, you know, I don't want to overthink it too much. You know, it's just like, bro, you did your suspension. You know what I'm saying? To me, this is like last straw. You're not gonna get like another one of these chances where if you wild out again, it's gonna be like, bro, they're gonna exile you at this point. So I think he knows what's going on, and I think he'll keep it together. I'm just glad he's back. We love watching Draymond Green and what he brings to basketball. It just gets annoying when he starts playing football. You know what I'm saying?
Kev, how you feeling about it? About his return and the Warriors' future?
I mean, I'm a Draymond fan, so I like seeing him back. I think when he's on the court and he's playing basketball, like Julian said, he's he's probably the smartest player at all times while he's on the court, and one of the best defenders while he's on the court. And he brings so much to Golden State on offense, not even just in the half court, but in transition. The way he can handle the ball and the way he knows where his guys are going to be. Again, goes back to his IQ while he's on the court. As far as them making the playoffs, those last 3 spots in the West, it's going to be a gauntlet between the Lakers, the Rockets, the Suns, and the Warriors. And any one of the, I mean, maybe not anyone, but like Phoenix, the Lakers, the Warriors, I think those 3 teams can really just find something and run with it. Like, those 3 teams have the ability to run off 7, 8, 9, 10 game win streak and jump back up to out of the play-in picture and into that 5, 6 seed talk. But yeah, they're gonna need Draymond in order to get to that point. I the I guess the question is, who do they need more? Do they need Draymond or do they need Clay to get back to form? But I think having Draymond is definitely, better than not having him on the floor. Obviously, you're talking about a guy who's all NBA defense, probably going to be a Hall of Famer when it's all said and done. So, obviously having that guy on the court helps more than it hurts. When he's not putting you in positions that hurt you, swinging on guys, putting them in chokeholds and things like that.
Don't forget the stomping on guys too.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm a big, like I said, I'm a Draymond fan, so it could be me just being biased. I think he gets a lot of shit, and I don't think he means to necessarily hit people or hurt people. I think a lot of this, like the kicking up of the leg, I think he's a flailer. I think he likes to sell contact. But if you
Kev,
Kev,
hold on. Let me make this point. You both have played ball. You've both played hoops. Would you be able to, not looking at a guy, throw your leg up and kick him in the nuts? Because that quickly, in that fashion,
Kev,
I don't think I could.
Kev, I'll give you the next 3 finishing moves that you got. He has a minute and a half highlight reel of odd plays, and I'm not here to. I'm not the listen. I'm just saying, much like he's had a lot of time to reflect while he was off, we had a lot of time to reflect and put a lot of highlights together and see what the fuck has really gone on over the past 8 years, and it's just kind of crazy.
I'll still say the Sabonis thing. If Sabonis isn't grabbing his leg, you don't step on his chest.
Fair, and but the Marcus Smart here, and then
there's definitely
it's a lot.
100%. Like, the backhand to me was egregious. Like, that was like,
Kev, if I pull your right shoulder, you're not gonna turn to the left. Like
no, this last one was probably the worst. I could see why he choked Gobert, because that's been like probably stewing in him for years. Like the Cleveland, that was my biggest thing. The finals, the reason they suspended him was for that leg.
Well, that was because they've let it slide already, and that was like, all right, we gotta get him going because Steven Adams didn't get kicked in the dick on accident. All right, I mean,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it's neither here nor there. Look. What's the Men in Black? We've erased that from our minds. We got fresh start Draymond pulling up within the next 10 days or so, and I hope that he can come back a better player and a better teammate from this. I do want to acknowledge the chat. Rodney said, haha, Lou thinks I didn't see that. He just posted in the chat that it was accidental and he deleted it. Message deleted. That's crazy. But Rodney said Golden State was never a leader type of team in my views. And I could see what he's saying. There's not that one guy on Golden State who you look toward. To me, I think during the championship run, it was probably Andre Iguodala, right? Like that was probably the guy who was vocal, maybe not so vocal as
I think
far as
Draymond
like a
too.
Marcus Smart, huh?
I think Draymond too.
And Draymond is definitely has some leadership qualities and has played a leadership role throughout the years. A good point that Stephen A. Smith made about Draymond is that he was just trying to say, first of all, Draymond, I didn't say Steph Curry is a bad leader. I said he's not a vocal leader. But he also made the point that if Draymond was LeBron's teammate, or if this happened, what Draymond's doing with any of LeBron's teammates, the media would be getting on LeBron's ass. Like, it would be no question that
Nah,
LeBron would be
facts. Talk
questioned
to your
as
boy.
much as the person that is committing these flagrants or getting kicked out of games. And, obviously LeBron's magnitude is further than anybody's, but at the same time, LeBron and Steph Curry have a lot of similarity as far as being the best player on their team, being a champion on their team, and being the guy that everybody kind of looks towards when it comes to talking about winning. So there's a fair point that they did. And then Lou said he's a tweeter and deleter. Hey, I am too. I post on Instagram and I delete it. I tweet and I delete it sometimes. And he also said, before we get out of here, I want to hear June say something nice about the Knicks. His head's going to explode. So I don't have anything nice to say about the Knicks. What I will say is a fact. I will say is they are 4-0 since the OG Anunoby trade. And I do believe that they go and make that 5-0 tonight against the Trailblazers at home. I got into a couple little arguments on Twitter because there was a discourse between 6'1" Jalen Brunson and 6'1" Donovan Mitchell and maybe the difference between them. I just tried to point out that one jumps out the gym like Dwayne Wade, the other plays under the rim. I didn't say one is better than the other at that moment. I do have my thoughts on who is. Go ahead, Kev.
No, I just want to like dispel a myth because I think this is everybody. I heard this when I was young, and then I realized when I was older this is not true. Your wingspan is not the same as your height, and Donovan Mitchell has a 6'10" wingspan. So there's your difference. Donovan Mitchell can disrupt you on defense. Donovan Mitchell can disrupt passing lanes. He can do a lot more for you than Jalen Brunson, who has a 6'4" wingspan. He's got a whole half foot in wingspan on Jalen
And that's
Brunson.
why Donovan Mitchell is an elite defender who can guard the 1 through, I would say, the 1 and 2 comfortably. A 3, you're kind of stretching it, but at the same time, there are some 3s that Donovan Mitchell can guard. Jalen Brunson is going to have a lot of trouble even with some 2 guards because of lack of wingspan and his size. Slick hate, just what I expected. I showed love. Listen, bro, I said y'all 4-0. I think y'all go 5-0 tonight. But there is discourse, man, and for me, just to think that Jalen Brunson all over is better than Donovan Mitchell is a crazy thought. But go ahead.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. Usually this is a Monday episode. Due to some travels that I had this weekend, it turned into a Tuesday episode. We appreciate you so much for tuning in live. Again, if you are listening on your streaming platforms, thank you so much. Could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. We'll be back Thursday to talk wildcard weekend preview, all the matchups. I know one of the comments in the chat said we want to talk about all the coaching openings. We'll talk more about that on Thursday as well. We'll fit that into the pod. So tune into that. We'll see you guys on Thursday. Thank you. My name is Small Town EP. I was joined by your host, See You Soon June, and guest for the